So Melbourne's housing crash has affected their budget. Let's have a look. Good evening, everyone. Florian Heiser here, and welcome to another episode of Heiser Says. I've got my Stein, and I thought we'd have a look at the effects of the housing price crash in Melbourne on the state budget. Now, this was released just recently, this article, and let's have a look at this. This is from the Weekend Australia on today. So, housing for all blows 5.2 billion hole in the Victorian budget. Now, we recently had not so recently, we had a Victorian election, and our good friend Andrew is here, got in. Now, this isn't the actual image from the article, it's just how it's printed, but I'm not a big fan of him, so I don't mind that there's an error in that, to be honest. So, let's have a look. They're saying here the housing market slide has triggered an unprecedented $5.2 billion stamp duty write-down in the Victorian budget, forcing Treasurer Tim Pallas to introduce a range of tax increases, including a crackdown on foreign property buyers and a luxury car duty. So, Labor got a Labor. Labor has got a Labor. They've got to implement taxes. So let's have a look at the economy, particularly in Melbourne. Now, we have a look here, the unemployment rate, or this is for the national trend. Now, Victoria's doing well, but you can see it's starting to trend up. It's been falling down, but in the last quarter, it's trended up. And what about our inflation rate? How's that going? Well, our inflation rate in March 2019 actually hit 0%. 0% inflation. That's pretty bad. You don't want to get 0% inflation. It's bad for the economy. It's bad for consumer confidence. What about our GDP growth rate? You can see here in the last December 2018, it was trending down. Now, if we have too many quarters of negative growth, you know what that means? We're heading for a recession. But property prices, we'll have a look here at the property prices in Australia. And you can say these are the predictions for 2019. And I'm sorry, I'm having a look down here to see it on the screen. Melbourne units are predicted to go down 6.5%, nearly a $50,000 decline. Melbourne houses and units $40,000 decline, down 7.62%. You can see all of them except for Hobart. Hobart are predicted to go down. Look, wow, Hobart house is $463,000. That's pretty high actually. Brisbane $560,000. Okay. Well, I'm really happy when I bought my house, but that's what you get for buying a fixer-upper. So you can see that housing prices are predicted to go down. Now, stamp duty or land transfer tax, whatever they call it, is a tax that you pay when, say you've got, there's a house. I'm an architect, so I don't draw with a mouse like this. But here comes little first home buyer couple, and they are buying the house. And a big chunk of extra money goes off into smoke and has disappeared. Essentially, it's a portion of money that you pay for the government to stamp your documents. Pretty much, to stamp your documents. Even though you have to do all the work, you have to fill out all the forms, you have to give them everything they want, you have to hire lawyers to do it. Can you tell I just went through the whole process? And so yeah. It's the stamp duty. It's essentially a tax on the transfer of houses. It is amazing. It is just amazing. And I think, I'll want to rant here a bit. It's just amazing how much taxes we pay on things. Just stepping away from this article and thinking about it. If you want to smoke, you've got to pay taxes on that. If you want to have a gamble, you've got to pay taxes on that. If you want to you drive your car and put petrol in it, you pay taxes on that. If you want to have alcohol, you pay taxes on that. I really think that taxation, the sin taxes, in many ways, are driving people to use more illicit substances because they're cheaper. They're cheaper when you take the taxes on. So all the libertarians are pushing for taxation or for the legalization of drugs. But that just means the government will tax the hell out of it. It'll probably cost more. It'll probably backfire. So let's have a look at this again. The stamp duty collapse represents a more than 75% reduction on the $6.9 billion of stamp duty revenue in last year's budget. 75% reduction. With Mr. Pallas flagging a crackdown on land banking and the introduction of a 7.25% gold royalty to recoup some of the losses ahead of Monday's budget. Now, it's interesting that he's mentioning land banking because This is a portion of an article where banks are shortchanging buyers, forcing lots of land back up for sale. So I'll just read this here. New research has revealed, and I mentioned this in an article previously, that of 2,400 blocks of land, 40% of those of the total stock were back on the market. And this really has to do with changes to banks' lending criteria and people's dreams, their houses they wanted to get were no longer viable from when they bought the land to when they went to build it. Banks' criteria changed. So, because it takes 12 months to 18 months to go through the process and for it to settle. So, it's just something to keep aware. And I mean, look at it, a 75% reduction in billions of dollars of his budget, and they haven't prepared for it. Or maybe they have by whacking on more taxes. Why do people keep voting for these guys? Premier Daniel Andrews said this week the budget surplus would remain intact. It'll be a surplus budget. It'll be a AAA rated budget. And it'll deliver on all the commitments, the promises, that agenda that we took to the election last year, he said. Will it reduce your crime? Will it reduce your crime rate there, Mr. Andrews? Days before the November 24 state election, Mr. Palace announced a doubling of state debt from 6% to 12% of gross state product to cover the $25.6 billion cost of the North-East Link toll road, the Melbourne Airport rail link, and the removal of an additional 25 level crossings. Okay, so, I mean, investing in infrastructure that can be paid off within a reasonable period of time is not a bad thing. Okay, it's not like the fact that Melbourne doesn't even have an airport rail link. That's crazy for a sophisticated, worldly city. We've got one here in Brisbane, and it's a fantastic asset. Some of them will never pay themselves off, like the new inner city Cross River Rail here. It's going to be subsidised forever, but it will have other economic benefits. They just need to stop taxing the hell out of everything. The government will introduce 2 tax increases applying to foreign property owners and will generate an estimated $330 million over 4 years. Okay, let's just think about that. They're saying that they will generate an estimated additional $330 million, but they can't even accurately predict this change or reduction due to stamp duty collapsing. What are you going to think? Do you think foreign buyers will be coming to Australia? I guess probably because of the reduction in the dollar too. The dollar's falling as well. I think it was 66 cents today in the US. So that will make it more attractive. From July 1, foreign purchaser duty on properties bought in Victoria will rise from 7% to 8%. And from January 1, foreign property owners will pay more on their land tax, with the absentee owner surcharge increased from 1.5 to 2% for about 3,000 property owners. The foreign ownership tax increases will bring Victoria into line with New South Wales. Okay, that seems reasonable, honestly. That seems reasonable. I as much as I hate taxation, I've got no issue with that. With foreigners, land banking, that can be the cost they incur for just sitting on an asset in this country. They should plan for that. It's only right that foreign property buyers contribute more so we can keep building the vital projects we need across our state, Mr. Palace said. As the property market softens, we are making changes to help make sure Victoria has a fairer tax system. Yeah, you're not doing enough. You're not simplifying it, but, whatever. The Treasurer will also close what the government has described as a land banking loophole, exempting vacant land attached to a principal place of residence from land tax. Ooh. I wonder how that's going to backfire. The government predicts the changes will see land tax paid on about 1,700 currently exempt blocks across Melbourne. Another loophole enabling owners of some of Victoria's 13,000 heritage-listed buildings to use heritage status to lower their land tax will also be removed. I'm not really a fan of that, to be honest, because they're already imposing on them with the heritage listing. So you've got an asset there. What are these organisations? Is this going to hit the National Trust? Will the National Trust be taxed because of this? Maybe someone can let me know in the comments. But, when you have a heritage building, you're restricted. The state is enforcing restrictions on what you can do. And I know of some architects who were not happy that their works were, listed, because then I think their own sister couldn't even work on their building, do an extension. The government will apply a scaled increase to the duty on cars worth more than $100,000 from July 1, raising an estimated $260 million. Okay, lucky we didn't get Labor in. Lucky we did not get Labor in with all the electric cars, because this is where the state would implement this policy thinking, oh yeah, $100,000 cars, that's a lot. And then you get Labor and half the people have to buy Teslas, so they buy one car instead of two, and oh, boom, they're spending $100,000. Caravans, motorhomes, low-emission vehicles, primary producer vehicles, and car dealer demonstration vehicles will be exempt. Changes to corporate restructure rules are expected to raise extra revenue for the government and increase business efficiency, flexibility, and the one-off corporate restructure exemption replaced with a 90% concession on duty. I'm not familiar with that in any great detail, but I'm always concerned. I remember here in Queensland when our Premier, when the taxation system was changed here in Australia, and all of a sudden we had to start paying our taxes monthly. And that was just not fun for cash flow for small business, not at all. The government will also introduce a 2.5% gold royalty from January 1, with an exemption for small miners. The measure is expected to raise $56 million and bring Victoria into line with the rest of the nation. I'm surprised they're still mining gold down there. Why aren't all the vegans and greenies against it? Mr. Pallas said, as the property market softened, the government was making changes to help ensure Victoria had a fairer system. Okay. So that's interesting what's happening there in Melbourne. I think the issue of main concern is the falling housing prices and the big hole in the Victorian budget and how they're trying to patch it up with other things. What do you think? Does this fill you with confidence in the government there in Victoria, that they know what they're doing? Does it fill you with confidence that they are going to, manage their economy efficiently, or that their predictions are going to be worse than they even realize? Guys, thank you for joining me for this episode. Please like, share, and subscribe. Leave your comments down below and let me know what you think about this. Are you concerned? Are you worried about the heritage buildings? That's the one that really sits with me. I think there's some other things here that could be implemented. I wonder if they already had it planned anyway. But just that's the instant solution they went through, is more taxation, not looking at savings. But that's the Labor way. Please like, share, and subscribe. I already said that. I'll see you again tomorrow. Bye for now.